You don't have your screen up, your cool screen that shows everyone.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Whoop, there we go.
There we go. Nice.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. If I'm not mistaken, we're writing the Town Hall number 22.
Town Hall 22. This is
Oof,
amazing.
this is. What time is flying. Like, what's going on? There has been so many things since we started, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. All right, welcome
It's true.
everybody.
It's true. Look at all these people we've got here. Oh my gosh. We
16
got some
people in the
stars in the
audience.
audience.
Awesome. Let me do my quick introduction. Welcome everybody. Welcome to today's town hall session. Today we're writing the town hall number 22. We do have the 2nd of November over here in Germany at least. And just welcome to this lovely place for you news on the Bitaxe, on everything that is around Open Source Minus United. And if you don't know us, check it out. You can check out the Open Source Minus United community at discord.gg/OSMU. Now I thought it might be a good starter right into it so people know where to go and they don't need to listen to the whole town hall. But you should. So welcome, and let's start with news. Do we have any?
Oh my gosh. Do we have any news? Yeah, I think Crypto Ice is correct. Today is a good day to start hacking the world. Hack the planet.
Hack the planet. Definitely. This
So in
is
the most amazing movie ever, of course, which is called Hackers, 1994 or 5 maybe. Anyways, mid 90s. In that movie, there was a TV show by these two hackers, Razor and Blade, and I mean this was before podcasts, but it basically was a podcast. Anyways, at the beginning of their show, they said "hack the planet," and they both said it, and it was super amazing. So
and you know what's funny for
here we
everybody
are.
who's not noticing that, but if you plug in your Bitaxe and you read the logs, what's going on if the Bitaxe starts up, you know what it says?
I know what it says.
So I hope a couple of you might get intrigued, hook up your Bitaxe to your PC, get ESP IDF, and run a serial logger to find out what it is.
PC load letter. Paper jam. Please insert paper tray two.
It says I2C error for no display. Lol. No, that's not supposed to be. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So,
So that's a good point. I think we have there. I'm pretty sure that we've always had this bug where I2C is constantly erroring out
yeah.
when there's no display because the
Hmm.
display is an I2C device, and so if it's not plugged in, you're going to get these errors. With the 2.3.0 firmware release of ESP Miner, I actually totally changed the I2C sort of like subsystem, the I2C library, um, to a newer version from Espressif. And I mean, I haven't tested this, but I think what's happening now is we're just seeing it in the logs. Like, I think this was always happening. Now we're seeing it in the logs.
Hmm.
But
We're seeing other stuff now in the logs as well with removing your display.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it brings up a good point is that we probably should not just like mysteriously slow down hashing and throw tons of errors when there's no display. We should like uh, do something about it. So I think that we have an issue that'll be coming up in a future release, but we should be able to operate just fine without the display. Um, that should be no big deal. We'll just got to get that put in there. Maybe it's worth like throwing up an error in AxOS, like one time kind of thing to show people that that's not in there. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things like this in ESP Miner that could use a little attention. You know, it's like handling errors.
Hmm.
It's classically kind of hard in C to like properly handle errors, like propagate them all the way back up out of the function stack.
And even if you do, sometimes it is just so tricky to get everything, and you just lose track of a couple of tiny errors, or you think, all right, I fixed it, and you fire it up, and no, it's still there. Yeah.
Yes.
By the way,
Yeah.
I closed your issue like 10 minutes ago for the
Oh
info
yeah.
of GitHub check. Yeah, I just merged it. So
Oh, great.
yeah,
Great. Yeah. That was kind of this came up a couple times
it's
in
a
the
nice to
past.
have, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, this is you're talking about adding the warning that checking for the firmware version hits an
Mm-hmm.
external server. Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
now it says clicking this button will connect to GitHub to check for recent updates.
Nice. Nice. This is good. I think people have become a little bit complacent in the fact that all of their IoT devices just like access external servers.
Mm.
I used to work in making IoT devices for a long time, and it happens all the time. Like you'll get like your IoT doorbell or garage door opener or some bullshit
Yeah.
like that, and then the company goes out of business, and their servers go down, and now your thing is just bricked. Like your doorbell doesn't work anymore because some miscellaneous server went down somewhere.
I
It's
mean,
totally bullshit.
and now imagine you would buy a miner from a company that is selling you a miner, and in order to use it, you need to connect to their license server. How bad would this be? Oh my goodness!
This is what sort of re-energized me to make sure that the Bitaxe is being responsible in this regard. Is that the miner to not be mentioned? Someone released a home miner, and it just hits their servers repeatedly, no matter what sort of Stratum server you're using. Which I think, maybe that's okay in industrial miners because I don't know, it's not cool.
No,
It's
it's
not
not
cool no matter
okay.
what.
It's not okay.
So
It gives this vibe back of Ant Blade to me.
yes, exactly, exactly. For those who don't know, Antbleed was I mean, it was a whole pile of drama, conspiracy perhaps
Mm.
with Bitmain, where they put in like a remote kill switch into their mining firmware. And they said it was like, oh, to protect our customers in case their miners get stolen, which is like,
Yeah.
thank you, no thanks. I don't want a remote kill switch on my miners. Like this is Bitcoin. We don't we don't like to trust centralized entities to do things for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, imagine you would step down, Ben would step down, I would step down, and now other people need to maintain this repo, or nobody's maintaining this repo. It wouldn't matter because you can do whatever you want with it, and firmware updates are usually some nice updates or improvements that we think are good. And sure, you could add into this caveat and say, there is sort of this door of like a couple of people that are maintaining this repo. What if they don't like my idea? I mean, just open up a PR and let's see. It's and I mean, if you're good and if you're not doing anything that's stupid, why not? Why shouldn't we implement it? Sure, there's always this debate, and I believe there's not really a solution to this issue. We couldn't have a GitHub repository where everybody could just publish what they want, because now then you would add in the threat of people just pushing bad or malicious code to it. So you need some sort of this door or this dude who's standing in front of you and telling you, nope, it's not okay.
Yeah,
If it is
yeah.
malicious.
I mean, it's tough, right?
Mm.
Is to have we want to be inclusive, right? Of anyone to be able to commit code or suggest features, things like that. But the software needs to work and basically, be and follow sort of the mission. But the thing is also that it's open source, and if you don't agree with the mission or what sort of the maintainers of the current GitHub repository have chosen, you can fork it and you can build your own Bitaxes. And I mean, it's especially important if, like you were saying earlier, like if you know the current maintainers of the GitHub repo can't or won't like continue to maintain it, like someone else can just take it and run with it. right? I mean, the
Oh
extreme
yeah,
example
totally.
of this is Satoshi creating Bitcoin, and that whoever that is just Satoshi just stepped away from Bitcoin, totally gone, and yet it continued on. Like people kept working on it, and so whether you know
Do
all kinds of things could happen, right? We saw with Samurai, and I think with um, the Ethereum thing, Tornado Cash, right?
mm,
Those developers were running an open source project, but they had some services that they were running that were central to it.
yeah.
And it turned out that the government of the United States thought that that was potentially not legal, and so they arrested them. And now that service can't run because those people are in jail. And it's like having a centralized point of failure is not good, right? It attracts attention to you. It potentially can control the project. So I think it's just
Do you
better
know
all
by
around.
any chance, is there any sort of like GitHub or Git equivalent on Nostr? That would be nice.
Um, I've heard of some stuff. I don't know if there's anything that's usable and practical yet.
Hmm.
Um, it would be, and we've talked about this before. I mean, it would be a real shame if Microsoft, who owns GitHub, was all of a sudden like, Bitcoin is prohibited, and so we're deleting your repository.
I'm
That would be a
already
bummer.
cloning all the repos of us to my local Git instance, so no worries on that.
Good. Yeah, I think that as many people should do that as possible while we wait for some decentralized development collaboration service, which seems like it could be done on Nostr. I don't know. It's a
I
big
mean,
project.
yeah, these open source projects are really driving forward. I mean, imagine like being Satoshi. And by the way, have you heard the news about this douchebag? I'm sorry if I'm calling him out. Who claims to be
That guy with the
Satoshi?
beard?
Oh
Yes,
my
that was
goodness.
amazing.
But I was
Oh,
about to say like it is really interesting. Like Bitcoin and the original code, maybe like 5% of the original code is left in it, and everything else since then has changed, which is just a surplus for the overall project because it does have adoption, it does have people that are carrying. So
this is my rant as to why open source is essential for decentralized software and hardware.
mm,
Is that, if Satoshi had started Bitcoin and had been like, oh, yeah, this is going to be like my company, and I'm not going to share the source code with anyone else besides the people who work in my company and have signed an NDA,
mm,
then what happens when, Satoshi Co. fails to get funding or just doesn't even start? Then it's all gone. I think Satoshi properly realized that to ensure that this is has a chance of continuing forever and remaining decentralized and permissionless, it needs to be open source. And so that's, in my mind, a big driver of, why Open Source Miners United is important, is because Bitcoin mining is obviously a very important part of Bitcoin. And so we need to have it also be open source so that it can continue on decentralized forever.
and to be honest, I mean we're 16 years into Bitcoin, and I still think the topic of mining is so early to so many people. I I listened to a couple podcasts days, and I was just shocked about the like misinformation or stupid arguments about mining from people who are clearly not into it or clearly have no idea what it means to code on this end or maintain it. It's really interesting. Like as you said, I totally agree. Mining is the second, not the second, but is the most important part about Bitcoin next to the nodes. Nodes and mining are equivalent. Without any of them, it wouldn't run. And none of them is more valuable than the other. And it's,
Yeah. We've
yeah,
got to we've got to protect them, which I think means, don't do proprietary shit. Give away, publish everything that you can possibly come up with.
totally, totally. I mean, the best takeaway for this always, or not takeaway, but the best project I know myself is BTC Pay Server.
That's quite a big project.
It is. I
You guys
mean,
seem to be doing well for themselves.
Oh yeah, they recently released version 2.0, and now it's even better. And you have way more implementations that you can do. Everything is open source, and this is the right way to go.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I mean, it is is fundamental, right? It's essential to Bitcoin to do it this way. I think that, you know, obviously you can do whatever you want too. That's a nice thing that it's permissionless. You can do whatever you want, but I think if you're thinking low time preference, if you're thinking for the future, open sourcing it is absolutely the way to go.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. Nevertheless, he
Rant time over.
no, no, totally not. We do have someone in the audience who is not really stepping up to come up on stage, but that is not that bad. Um, shall we talk about him? You probably know who I'm talking about. Like we've talked about him in the admin channel, like yesterday.
Oh gosh. Putting me on the spot. Who are we talking about?
The picture that Ben shared.
Uh-oh. I'm drawing a blank. Help me out.
Barn.
Picture that Ben shared. Oh. Yes. All right, add him up here. This is someone I know in real life. He's a good dude.
All right, let's get him up on stage, please. What?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey there.
Sorry, I'm driving. I'm heading to the fair. My daughter's getting ready to show her turkey to be, but
Taking the turkey to the
that's why I
fair.
didn't
Nice.
answer. I'm making my daughter suffer listening to the town hall.
No worries.
What's
Dude.
going on?
Good dad.
But before you dive into it, let me quickly give a glance at who you are. Like, maybe you introduce yourself, but you donated a couple sets to us, which is just amazing. I wanted to thank you for that. So maybe you want to share a little bit on your end, what you're doing and how come.
Yeah, actually, cool. I'm glad that my daughter's in here too because she helps do it. So we make beef jerky basically. We don't use miners to dry it because my miners are just dirty. But we started making beef jerky as like a fundraiser for Bitcoin Bay, my local meetup, and it kind of turned into a thing, or everybody liked it, and they're like, keep making it. So I kept making it, and then so pretty much it originally was a fundraiser for them, and then now it just kind of turned into every time we do a smoke, we donate to a project that's interesting to us or it's been helpful to me over the years or time. So this I think the last one was either Pod two. Last one was Zeus Wallet. The one before that, I think it was Pod 256, and then this one we chose Bitaxe. So it's just a kind of just a small way for us to give back. So we donate a little bit of the the sats that we get for selling the jerky, and it's kind of how it is. It just keeps growing. So it's been fun.
Can you tell us quickly about the process for making this? Like, where you get the
So
beef
yeah,
and who
absolutely.
makes
So
it?
the goal, yep, the goal was kind of it's circular economy type scenario. So we buy the beef. I've now got a supplier. It's a local beef, grass fed, grass finished, and the supplier I pay in Bitcoin, and we sell it for Bitcoin. So everything is it's all Bitcoin, and then so my daughter helps slice it and marinate it and get it prepped, and then I smoke it at my buddy's farm, and then the other daughter packages it, and then everything's run on a BTC Pay server that we host ourselves, and it's all Bitcoin. So it's been a fun experiment.
We do have a question from the audience. Do you ship to Europe? I bet
I
not.
cannot. Yeah, I wish I could, but they don't allow. Nobody
Yeah,
likes our meat.
yeah.
So there's a lot of. I can't ship to Canada. That's pretty much any of the
All right.
country.
So,
Anything outside of the US.
all right. So I need to fly over, grab some, and fly back to Europe. That's no
Yeah,
issue. All right.
It's worth
I
it.
know
It's worth
people
it.
that
This is good stuff. I had a bag.
I
I
know
love
people
Very
that
it.
have
tasty.
smuggled it into Canada before, but I'll be at the conference with Altair. I work with Altair, doing a lot of his tech support kind of stuff, and that's kind of how I got exposed to the Bitaxe project.
So
Just
so
helping
next
people set them
time,
up, and
so next time, like on Nashville or anything else, you need to be next to the BitX booth and just try your jerky with a Bitaxe.
Yeah, we could do that. Then we could say we used Asics to dry it.
Yeah.
What temperature do you
So
dry it?
we smoke. We tried to. So I use a smoker, just an old fashioned smoker box. We're looking at ways to scale, which is kind of incorporating electric, just to keep the temperature consistent. It's more like when you're using this. We use an old fashioned like firebox on the side and then a smoker barrel. And the goal is 200 degrees for 3 to 4 hours, depending on humidity and other
Fahrenheit or
factors.
Celsius?
It's Fahrenheit. Sorry for you, non
93,
non
93
non
degrees
US.
Celsius.
93. Oh, that's a little bit high for an ASIC.
Yeah, yeah, it would be. Yeah, we'd probably need some other source. But I know some guys that do that. I think Business Cat does that when he dries his. He dries his, but I think he does use something else to kind of boost it up.
It seemed like you could use a traditional heating element, but like sort of augment it with a miner. I know that that's what Heatbit does in their space heaters.
Yeah, it's an option. It's just had a lot of. My daughter said a lot of work. We haven't really looked into it yet, to be honest. We're trying to figure out how to scale it a little bit because it seems like when we smoke it, we run out pretty quickly. So I did recently buy a old oven for $150. It's like an old commercial oven, and we're getting ready to convert it to a smoker, which should be pretty fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we certainly appreciate your support, dude. This is huge. It's an awesome project. You're doing it with your family. That's badass. Uh, and it's also very tasty.
Good. Glad you guys like it.
All right, I definitely need to fly over and
Appreciate
grab
you having me
some.
up. Yeah, when you're coming in the States, man, let me know.
I'll make sure to do that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for being here and thanks for your donation. It's highly appreciated.
You're welcome. Glad to do it.
Alrighty. Shall we? Okay, this is like a hard cut here, but shall we move on with a couple of fixes that we are working on lately?
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you who might not know this, we are currently sitting at version 2.3.0, and sooner than later, the next iteration will appear. And Ben has done some great work on the XOS UI. There are a couple of issues on that as well, but let's see, what else do we have worked on? So we have like an improvement and a total change of the UI, like color wise. We have a couple of issues open of people asking for a mod or like a button where you can toggle the colors for someone who's colorblind or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this was Mutatram was saying that some people have issues specifically seeing red on black, like a contrast thing. Also, green on black is tough for some people. And so it's like, I mean, there's probably someone who has a problem with any color scheme that we pick. So this might be a good argument for having themes or at least a couple different options. You know, I know in most IDEs you have an option to pick your text color because you're like staring at it all day, and you want to have it be pleasant. I don't really know the practicality of changing this in the AxOS UI, but I have a feeling it's doable. So I think we should do that. I wanted to talk about the UI a little bit. He was in here earlier, but he left. Is Derek. Derek has been doing, with his team of designers, has been doing a bunch of work on the UI UX of AxOS and Bitaxe in general. And they, me and Ben and you, Want Clue, we did a session to kind of talk about Bitaxe and like go over some different sort of like design ideas and things that what we like and don't like, and to try and pick something because they're professional designers and they want to help out. And they've produced a style guide for Bitaxe that is really sweet. I really like it. It's got fonts in there. It's got like sort of layout suggestions, color schemes, things like that. This was posted on OSMU recently. So you can go back and look at that. It's really cool. It's really well done, super professional. These guys do fantastic work. The name of the firm is called BeMind or BeMind, and they're in Italy. Anyways, Ben took that style guide and moved over a lot of the colors over to AxOS so we could get a vibe for what it's going to be like. I think there's more coming in that regard. The layout and sort of like some UX stuff. UX is user experience, and that's kind of like helping people interact better with the
and
UI.
to guide themselves through the overall theme of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've got a lot of us nerds who are into this thing, but
this is far away from like user experience. Like we would use a plain HTML site if we could.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously we're in this for the glory, and we would make it work no matter what. And I think a lot of the people here, and actually like a lot of the people that have been buying Bitaxes have been really cool. I mean, we've had like tons of bugs, and like sometimes the things don't work. And I think for the most part, people are like super supportive, stoked that they can get in on this, and like are willing to work through any problems, which is great. We're approaching. I mean, the goal here is to get as many bugs, as many sort of tricky user experience elements, out, so that more and more people can get into this. Obviously, the goal is to completely take over the world with decentralized home mining that's open source, but it also needs to be easy so that anyone can get in, and it doesn't require you to be a total nerd like us.
And this is totally a good segue over to our Discord, which you can find on the discord.gg/OSMU, by the way. But we do have 2 official supporters or support guys here in our Discord, and I really need to do a shout out for them because they're doing so much great work. Like, if you do have any issues and you come into this Discord server and you ask anything, besides of having plenty of people that are willing to help you, we have like 2 official people who are working on OSMU basically and helping people to fix their bugs or their issues or guide them through this, which is just amazing that we're at this stage. Just needed to say that.
Yes, right on. You guys are super appreciated. As I was saying that, we should I feel like we didn't say where people can get Barn Miner's jerky.
Oh,
I mean, you have to be in the US, but he does ship it, right?
oh,
What's the website?
share with us, please, in the chat. Go for it.
He's driving. He probably
Oh,
can't post in the
oh.
chat. He sent it to me. I'm gonna look at it real quick.
His
You can
daughter
keep
needs to
going.
do it.
His daughter did. Yes.
But
Barn Miner's daughter. What's the website?
go for it, please. But yeah, so we will get this in the chat, and I'll read it out loud in just a second as soon as it is in there. But besides from having like
There it is. All right, I got it.
oh,
All right.
yeah,
barnjerky.hashroots.inc.io.
oh,
That's the website. I'll
can you post it in the chat, please? Yeah,
Yeah, if you're just listening. barnjerky.hashroots.inc.io.
great. Man, I wish I would be over there and could test it. I mean, I do love beef jerky, but usually you get it, I don't know, like in the supermarket and grocery store. It is okay, but I guess I have.
Yeah, this stuff's way better than that.
I bet so. I've tested homemade beef jerky once, and I was just like, all right, this bag will be empty in like 5 seconds. I need more.
He's got like a mild and a spicy, and yeah, it's delicious.
All right, Barn Miner, if I ever come over to the US, be aware you need plenty more because I want all of it.
Okay, sorry, I totally derailed this. I just want to get his website out there so
Totally
that people
fine.
can get it. He
That
does
is-
this like all the
that's
time.
needed.
Like he's always making more. So
Great.
and and a portion of the profits go to a very good cause, a different one. So yeah, get a lot.
All right, I was just trying to make this shift over to a couple other changes that we do have and that are upcoming for the next couple of releases. Beside the fact that also we do have hardware changes. I'm not sure if you already have released the next iteration of the Gamma. Have you? The
Did I
602?
release the what? No, the current release edition is still of the Gamma is still 600.
The 601,
This
right?
Well, the current released version, like on the releases tab on GitHub, is still 600.
All right, got it.
But we've got lots of 601 out there. 601's working great. I just need to make the bomb Gerbers, make sure that all the like release binaries more or less are in there, and we'll get 601 released.
All right. Oh, that's good.
Lots of things on the to-do list, but that's coming up.
Great.
Um, I know lots of them are out there, and they seem to be working really well. I mean, we do have, I don't know, maybe we can talk about, this was kind of a big issue, I think, in the last 2 weeks was some of the thermal issues, heat sink stuff. We can talk about that at some point.
Yeah, but before we do that, let's quickly go over to another topic in the software. So, you and I, we both had this discussion about Swarm, and we both kind of disliked it for the reason that it was doing its job, but it was not really that great. It was sort of buggy, and then I released my Chromium extension where people can just use it and it will automatically scan the network and show you all the hash rate of all your Bitaxe devices locally. And then BMind, like Derek from BMind, who's also working on improving the UI, came up with another solution called Pluto for Umbrel, I believe it's currently released. It's in a beta stage, so it's still work in progress, still under development. But I haven't used it. I don't use Umbrel. You can share more on this, but
Yeah, I've been following along. It's Umbrel is one of these node in the box things, probably one of the more popular Bitcoin node in a box software packages. They make their own hardware you can load it on. You can also load it on a Raspberry Pi or a PC. Um, it's really easy to install. They also have an app store with a bunch of different apps that you can get. I think a lot of them are more like self-hosting home server kind of stuff, which I'm
mm,
not super into. But there's obviously lots of Bitcoin stuff. It's a Bitcoin node by default. Anyways, Derek has released the beta of Pluto in their community app store, and so if you go to the App Store in Umbrel and you configure it with their URL, which is posted in the Pluto channel on OSMU, you can download the software and run it, and it works really well. It's really slick. It's running on a much more powerful server, so it's a lot more responsive than the Bitaxe. And Derek is a UI UX guy, so while it's not finished, it still is pretty slick. But you can get charts, you can get a list of all your Bitaxe devices. You can auto scan the network and find all your Bitaxes. You can see all the stats in one place. Still in beta. There's issues, but he's working on it. I think it's coming along nicely. It's been really helpful for me because I got like this whole fleet of Bitaxes. I got kind of like one of each revision set up, and it's nice to have one spot to go and like
what
look at
is
how they're doing.
what is this dude who does have like, I don't know, 20 dozen of Bitaxe hanging from from the top?
Uh,
Is it Kaka something or?
yes, it's Kaka something. Man, that guy's got a tough username. Where is it? He's always posting in the Hex channel.
It is
Uh,
so insane. Like he has dozens of Bitaxe devices just on a board hanging from the top, and uh, Kavala. Oh, I'm sorry if I. Oh,
Kaka Kaka Walala.
okay.
Keka, maybe it's Keka Lala. Keka Lala. I think that's it. Anyways, this dude, he builds his own Bitaxes and Bitaxe hexes and everything. And he's got a zillion of them. And he is very helpful too in OSMU, like helping other people build their own because he's gone through a lot of debugging, obviously, and building his. I don't know what his total he's up to now is, but it's a lot. And he has a very unique mounting style for them all. They're kind of all mounted to boards, like wooden boards that are hanging from the ceiling. So he has these, and it looks like it's in his kitchen too. dude is a legend. He's got boards with like 12 bit axes mounted to it, hanging from chains from the
Mm.
ceiling in his kitchen. And he posted this picture the other day. Well, I should step back. He posted a picture a few months ago of them all kind of shaking because where he lives, they had an earthquake. And just recently, he posted another picture of them all shaking because there's like a hurricane or a typhoon happening. So it's cool. It's cool to see what people come up with. And Keka Lala is a legend.
Yeah, so now with that and having plenty of Bitaxe devices, you want to make sure to monitor them. And Ben implemented as like a sort of test thingy months ago, or maybe even last year. No, earlier this year, the Swarm functionality. And plenty of people use it, but we both had like this discussion, all right, in favor of these external tools that we now do have, we should discontinue it in order to use the ESP itself for something more useful. But we both hadn't had really time to eliminate Swarm out of XOS, and Ben somehow found a couple of minutes to work on it, and he sort of fixed it. He changed plenty of things around it. It's now working more stable. It does have like a automatically scan your network. It does have a couple of things, and it needs a little bit more error handling, but he did a really great job. But it feels like we're keeping Swarm.
Yeah, I I mean, when we talked about removing it, a bunch of people came up and they're like, we want to keep it, including Ben, the guy who wrote it. So I just he added a really cool feature, which is this auto scanning thing. So as soon as you click on the Swarm tab, it just within a couple of seconds just finds all the bit axes on your network, which is pretty slick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're gonna keep it for now. We talked about changing the name of it. I kind of liked Quiver, but then Grand Central came up, which I think is also a good name.
I thought Amory would be cool, but yeah.
Yeah, naming things is hard, right? That's one of the
I'm wondering what the
hardest
next
things.
Bitaxe iteration will be. But we do have one dude who's basically naming all of them, right?
Yes, yes, one of the original collaborators on the hardware of the Bitaxe. I think this is public. Nebula Miner. He was one of the first before OSMU. He reached out to me and helped with the hardware of the first Bitaxe. This is like before the Bitaxe Max, and so I named the Bitaxe Max, but then all the ones after that he named. So the Ultra, the Supra, and the Gamma are his names, and I like them. They're great names, and he claims to have a whole list of names lined up for all the follow-up versions. So yeah,
It's gonna be great.
why stop doing a good thing?
By the way, speaking about the Gamma, do you guys have noticed that we do have like a new device in the Nerd QX Plus channel? Naming schemes are hard, but we do have a community member who's called Puel, and he released the Oct X Gamma, Nerd Oct X Gamma. I'm sorry.
Man, this is amazing. It's getting hard to keep up with, and that's a good thing. So many people are working on cool
But
stuff.
this is so insane. So Gamma, you get it. It is the BM1370, so the S21 Pro chip, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yeah.
it utilizes 8 of them, therefore Oct, and it does utilize the Nerd Miner screen, so therefore the Nerd X thingy, and it's just so insane. Like 170 watts of power consumption for roughly 10 terahash. I mean, I'm just saying, guys, if you run an S9 with like 400 watts or 1000 watts because you want to get like 14 terahash, watch out. Better watch out, really.
That's so cool. That's gonna be
It is so insane.
fantastic. Is it done? I actually didn't even see this post.
It is
Did he
done.
finish it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
done. It's
yeah.
working.
It
Oh my
is.
gosh.
It is
Paul's a
working.
legend.
He he posted a couple of pictures. So initially he had a couple of doubts about the cooling of the bucks because he was just training bucks together in order to achieve it. And I'm not really sure. Wait, where's my calculator? So we are sitting at 1.2 volts. 1.2 volts, and wait a second. How much amperage is this?
Yeah, because I mean, I think I remember him talking before about how powering these things in series is
Oh my goodness,
really
it's like,
hard, and he wants to power them all in parallel.
yeah, it's like 108, 150 to 160 amp.
Hold on, it's 160 watts, right?
No. It's 175 to 200, something in this ish area. And I mean, you're running them in parallel. So 1.2 volts times 150 amps gives you 180 watts of power consumption. And he is close to 175 to 200, somewhere in this range. So he's running over 150 amps over this board. Oh
That's awesome.
my goodness. This is. Oh my goodness.
Gotta have some thick traces,
Oh
thick
yeah.
and wide tracks. Yeah, I mean, this is why when you look at an Antminer hash board, they have those metal tabs on all of the traces. It's just to make them thick so they can carry additional current. The traces need to be thicker than the PCB maker can make them.
hmm But I believe the PCBs from Antminer, they are 4 layers, right? Or are they 6 layers?
It depends. The PCBs in the Antminer S21 and S21 Pro are one layer,
Mm-hmm.
and they're aluminum core with just one layer, so no vias, um, and just that one layer. And so,
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
I mean, making the all like, the way PCBs are made is they like lay down a copper sheet and then they etch away what you don't want to be tracks. And so, if you wanted to have all the tracks be super thick, that could be a problem. So I think it does make sense for those high current tracks to then come back with a separate process and solder these metal plates to the top.
I I I think we should play around with these metal thingies in a future iterations as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious where you can get them. I haven't looked into it at all. Maybe you can just order them.
I'm also curious on how you actually solder them, because sure you use them in order to increase the thickness to drive more amperage over them, or and more volts as well. But like, how do you actually connect them? If you use like one layer, they need to directly have contact to whatever you're trying to connect to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just lay down solder paste and reflow solder them right to the top. So
Hmm.
that way, the whole length.
It's still
Uh,
bugging in my head.
yeah, it's kind of wild. I mean, at the surface, it's easy. It's like, oh, put down a bunch of solder paste on top of this track and solder
Hmm.
these things to it. But like, you have trouble because everything about those boards is designed to dissipate heat. So it's going to be really hard to A, melt that solder, and B, um, have it be evenly hot so that the whole thing reflows and you have this even solder connection of those metal tabs to the
Hmm.
top of the tracks. Um, so it's wild. I mean, I feel like Bitmain has always been kind of pushing the envelope on soldering this stuff, because they solder heat sinks to the top of the chips. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff to try and deal with all this heat.
Yeah, to be honest, it's seeing the evolution of AC chips and how to handle heat dissipation of them is kind of crazy. I do have around 200 BM1397s currently laying in front of me, and like seeing all of them having solder on top of them because you want to solder the heatsink directly onto the ASIC is also kind of wild.
It is wild. I don't understand how you solder the ASIC down, which is already impossible to solder. It's super hard to solder those things. And then you're going to solder this giant heatsink to the top of it. It's madness.
Yeah, probably some differentials, different heat melting points thingies. there's madness. Yeah, totally agree on that.
Madness.
Madness, definitely. Um, all right. You were about to talk. You wanted to talk about something else as well. I just forgot what it was.
The heatsink stuff.
Oh yeah, please, please.
Well, let's see. Where do I start?
I mean, we
The
can.
Gamma, the Bitaxe Gamma,
Yeah.
has a new ASIC on it. That ASIC has a much higher hash rate, 1.2, nominally like 1.2 terahash. So that's significantly higher than the previous chip. It has higher efficiency, but still, even with that higher efficiency, it still uses more power. And so where we were at, like, I don't know, maybe nominally like 15 watts before, now I haven't, what's the math? Anyways, we're at like 18 watts plus. So that's more heat. I mean, obviously all that power gets converted to heat at the chip. And in order to keep the temperature from, doing what's called thermal runaway, where it gets hotter and that makes it run, that makes more current flow, which is more hotter, et cetera. All that heat needs to be dissipated by the heatsink. And so before, I think we had some headroom, like with the Supra, we had some headroom where you could overclock it, and or potentially if you had a bad thermal connection between the heatsink and the chip, it would be fine because the heatsink could deal with 25 watts plus, no problem. Well, now we're already at 18 to 20 watts, so that doesn't give you much headroom for overclocking. In fact, it doesn't really give you any headroom at all. So the Bitaxe Gamma is with the stock heatsink, that that gold one, is a lot less tolerant of poor thermal connections. That's the thermal compound, the paste, or bad fans, or operating in really hot rooms. It's less tolerant of that than previous versions, and so you might find yourself in a overheating situation. And now with the 2.3.0 firmware, I think we have a pretty good way of indicating to people that it has overheated and that they need to do something about it. But yeah, it's a little bit different than previous Bitaxes, where you could, like nearly all Bitaxes sold could be overclocked. In case you don't know, the way the chips work is Bitmain just sells them all, and some of them might be capable of significantly higher overclocking than others. They call it the silicon lottery. You don't know what sort of performance you're going to get out of the chips. We certainly don't know either. The manufacturers don't know.
It's basically
you might be able to
the same
overclock
as
the Gamma.
it's basically like the same as with a CPU. Some of them you can overclock and some of them you can't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think when they get tested, like a CPU, when it gets tested by the manufacturer at a factory, right? They're gonna test it for certain parameters, but
I mean, let's quickly dive into that. It's also sort of the same on the ASIC chip side. Like with CPUs, you usually do have like Intel, AMD, and then there are a couple other knockoffs thingies. But what's really interesting is if you do take a look on these CPUs from the die, like the actual chip that you utilize on your PC, most of these chips, sometimes you do have like for AMD X variants, which you can overclock, and then you do have other variants that you cannot overclock. Some of them have a graphical unit, some of them don't. But what's really interesting these days is usually what these manufacturers do, they produce one die, which basically does have everything. And depending on how good all the little cores on this die perform, they either activate the overclocking functionality or they disable it. They label it as like a lower tier unit and they disable a couple of cores because they think they are not well enough. So you do purchase basically the same die at a different price level because they are underperforming. So it could be that, for example, you buy the best CPU out of the market and then you buy like a lower tier unit as well, and both dies are basically the same. The one that is just top notch does perform very well, and the other one, which is in the mid tier or something like that, is basically the same one, just has disabled cores. And the same approach also happens with Bitmain chips. This is my assumption, because I cannot really tell because I'm not sophisticated enough in this topic, but we do have this package of the ASIC, so all the plastic and then the die in the middle, And you do see like different variants like AG, BS, BC, PB, and so on. And Bitmain puts them into different categories like hydro miner. Now we do have this new immersion thingy because Bitmain notices that people are really into immersion cooling and stuff like this. And then you have the S21, you have the S21 Pro, the XP, and there's really this highly not suggestion, but assumption that it's basically the same chip, just like deactivated or not. On a
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it makes sense, right? The when you're making a chip, you first make a mask set, which is like if you're thinking like screen printing a T-shirt, right? You have the screen, which is what you squirt the ink through to make the T-shirt. It's, in a very high level way, it's very similar. You use this mask set to make the chips. It's what like puts the various layers down on the silicon wafer to make the transistors and all the parts that are inside the integrated circuit. So the catch here is that this mask set is incredibly difficult to produce. It takes a long time, and it costs tens of millions of dollars to make it. So you're not going to make multiple different versions. What you want to do is you want to make one, and then when you test the chips that come out of it, there'll be some that are perform better than others just by like small variations in the manufacturing process, I think, and their positions on the wafer and stuff. So you want to make one mask set because they're really fucking expensive. But then, you test the chips that you get out of it, and you can classify all the chips into like essentially different like quality.
Yeah.
And so the ones that are of higher quality will perform better, more efficient than the ones that are of lower quantity. But you don't, the lower quality ones, they're still working. I mean, you can still sell them.
I'm
they
wondering
might just have lower
how
hatch rate or lower efficiency.
I'm wondering how many of them do they actually need to throw away?
I my suspicion is that Bitmain plays it a little bit more fast and loose than some of the other CPU makers, for example, in that they sell the lower end ones more readily. Whereas maybe they should have been thrown away. I do know that they group them all. It's called binning, where you test a bunch of chips, and the ones that perform similarly all go into a bin, and those get made into a hash board, because a Bitmain hash board will have 60 to 100 chips on it, and they all need to be similar performing, so they'll bin them. And I suspect what happens is the poorly performing bins just get made into like lower hash rate miners.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, this is also like really interesting if you do purchase like, for example, two S21 Pros and put them next to each other and fire both of them up, you probably get different results, like very likely.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. I heard from a big Pubco miner. I was actually talking to the CEO. It was an interesting conversation, but he says that, they obviously have a ridiculous amount of Bitmain miners. And when they get them, they'll actually go through and re-bin the chips to like take chips off the board to replace them with others that are closer performing, so that they can get better performance out of the miner. Because you imagine there's like 300 chips in a miner, you have to operate it essentially as fast as the slowest chip. You have to go for that lowest common denominator. So if they can identify what the lowest performing chips are in a miner and remove them and replace them with higher performing chips, then the whole machine can run faster and more efficiently.
We really need to get a little bit more into using multiple chips. We do have the hacks and the super hacks. There has been some work on the gamma hacks, but apparently this work has been stopped. So there's something else coming out very soon. But I really think to aim for beefier home miners, having more of these oct thingies, but actually not with parallel ASICs, but in series, would be insane. Because it's still like a mysterium to us a little bit, this using them in serial and having this, what's it called, level shifting of the signals. It seems weird.
It's super weird. It's like dealing with multiple voltage domains, which is what happens when you power these chips in series. Like it's a brain fuck. Like thinking about, ground not being 0 volts and having like multiple grounds throughout your design. It's a mind fuck, and it really makes it different. And it doesn't help that we don't have any documentation for these chips either. So,
It
well, I think
starts.
we,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, we've got a lot figured out with the hacks. I mean, it does work. But there still is some strangeness, like, and also determining, what when it's not working, like figuring out what exactly went wrong. That that is something that is still a bit of a mystery. So it's a little bit of a work in progress. But you know, I think with the Nerd Q Axe series, those multi-chip miners, I think that they have correctly realized that it's significantly easier to power them all in parallel. Like you're dealing with really high current, which is a pain in the ass, but you don't have to do any. There's only one voltage domain. You don't have to deal with any level shifting. So the whole powering the chips and getting the data to all of them gets so much easier.
Sorry for the quiet here, but I'm just trying to work this out in my head. Like I can't point this out enough. It's still a brain fuck for me from time to time.
Me too. Me too. It's kind of crazy. And you know what? I contend that it's a brain fuck for Bitmain too, because if you look at their hashboards closely, which I've done a lot of now,
They have so many DMP components on there.
they have, yeah, exactly. Like the S17 is interesting because it obviously has a lot of voltage domains, and they don't use level shifters when the data goes to multiple voltage domains, but they did have the pads on the board for it. So clearly they thought that maybe they were going to need level shifters, but then they didn't put them on, and so that's really interesting. But then going forward to the J Pro, they don't have level shifters, and they also don't have the pads for the level shifters.
Hmm.
And then when we got to the after the J Pro is the XP, the S19 XP. Well, now all of a sudden we have level shifters are back, and they're these weird little chiclet sub PCB boards with a Chinese only op amp on there, which was a treat to try and reverse engineer.
Yeah, I bet so.
Mech Fighter did a lot of that work, by the way, and I think he nailed it. I think it works, except for the clock. We haven't figured out how to get the clock to cascade, but the data works, which is pretty cool.
But we're drifting away from the original topic of talking about the thermals on the BitX Gamma, because
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
so we also do have this dude on X who was posting plenty of articles about testing every version of a cooler that you can attach onto a BitX, and he was publishing it. And I believe yesterday I had a little chat with him, and I was asking him if he wants to also put this onto the OSMU wiki, because I do believe there are pretty nice insights into this. But the hardest part is like he's constantly updating. He's constantly putting out new informations about how to use it, what kind of cooler he's using, and he's also testing with this ice tower cooler thingy. Like guys, I'm not into modifying my heatsink. All stock thingies work for me. I don't really overclock these things because most of them I run off of solar, so I don't want to drain my battery too fast. But yeah, this dude really does have some insights, and I'm really looking forward to get his insights onto the OSMU wiki as well to provide it to more people. And if you don't know this by now, we do have our own wiki page, which you can find under osmu.wiki, as well as our Discord under discord.gg/osmu. But yeah, just saying. So
I mean, this is the coolest thing about OSMU is that these super smart people just show up and they're like, "Oh yeah, just dig right in, right? Just go for it." And This is what the guy you're talking about is doing all the thermal testing on X. He's also on OSMU. His handle is
But wait,
me, right?
I just need to interrupt you here for a second because I do have some insights into something else which is kind of cool. So you all know Noctua. They do make these fans, which are really expensive but really great as well. They are currently investigating what kind of pressure you need on the Bitaxe in order to have the best performance and the best heat dissipation.
That's so cool. Noctua is obviously legends in this space. From what I heard, this is actually like the CEO of Noctua doing this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's so cool. I look forward to what they come up with. Yeah, we've got two different people on OSMU who are working on custom heat sinks for the Gamma. That Side Hack with Duncan are working on their own heatsink, and Ben's working on a custom heatsink for the Gamma, so something a little bigger.
Yeah, there's this 60 millimeter fan in the talk, I'd say. Like, I do have my personal opinions about it. I'm not really sure if we actually need to go that big, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
I took the stock heatsink. Someone found like just a random 3D printed 40 millimeter to 60 millimeter adapter.
Mm-hmm.
Printed it out, got a 40 millimeter or a 60 millimeter 5-volt PWM fan from Noctua, strapped it on there, and I swear it worked better. I mean, I think that adapter could be optimized too, but
Airflow is a little bit of an issue. That's for sure. Also, we do have plenty of people who do have these thermal cameras and who are investigating the Bitaxe on how is the heat actually building up. Especially if you do take a look on the 5-volt rail, which is coming directly into it from the barrel plug and then going to the buck converter. There's plenty of heat that doesn't really get dissipated.
oh yeah, yeah, and you know what? To the manufacturers out there, there's a Chinese knockoff of the barrel connector, and it sucks. It's really amazing. You wouldn't think there'd be that much difference, but the sort of name brand one, which is I assume also made in China, is significantly better. Use the name brand. I think it's like 54 dash something barrel connector. It works way better, and it won't get nearly as hot. Dramatic difference. I initially had my prototype Gamma had that the knockoff barrel connector on there, and when I switched it to the name brand one, like way cooler. Like it was hot to the touch before, now it's no big deal.
I mean, the biggest issue that I had once, that was quite funny. So I was working with a couple of weeks ago with a manufacturer who's also building now Bitaxes and will and is selling them, and they sent me 1 or 2 devices over to make sure to test it because they had like a new manufacturer who was building these devices for them, and I was just doing a little bit of investigation on all the components they used, and I found a couple of components that might need to be replaced because these are Chinese knockoffs and didn't perform very well. And the best part was like there is a buck converter for the older model of the Bitaxe, like the 204 and so on. So not the TPS 546, but the older one, which I don't know the exact name of it. But there's a Chinese knockoff of this buck converter, which is labeled the same, but gets like 20 to 30 degrees hotter, which is insane. And I was literally burning my finger on it.
Oh man. Oh man. Some of these like knockoff ones too. I wonder if they're like getting them out of the garbage can. You know, like these chips don't work. They get too hot, and so they throw them away. And someone else is like, "All right, cool." They say the right part number on top, and they, they turn on. So let's sell them.
Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, let's see. Are there any other topics that we want to, guys? Like, I haven't made this clear today, but town halls are for the people, for the miners, from the miners. That's the better saying here. If you do have any questions or if you want to ask anything, make sure to use the chat, or if you want to get your voice recorded, raise your hand, come up on stage. This is not only your daily dose of getting news about Bitaxe and OSMU in general, which is lovely anyway, but also to drive forward your interaction with us if you want to. We sometimes feel a little bit lonely up here on stage, but yeah.
We had a comment from Crypto Ice about adding Wi-Fi RSSI signal strength. I think we should do that. I think we can add that in. I think we get that through the SDK, so that shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be too hard to add that to AxOS.
Maybe I should
Um,
I should quickly get some or give some updates about the new web flasher that is upcoming. Because
yes.
so today I was fixing a couple of bugs on it. Um, so it is still Chromium based, and I was digging into it because obviously for whatever reason with the old one, Scott, you can correct me, but it seems like you can use Safari on the old one, which is not supposed to work, which is weird.
No, I couldn't use Safari.
Oh, great. Okay, so then it doesn't matter. Then that's great. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I think you still need that
Google Chrome or
web serial. It's like a plugin for a browser called Web Serial, and Safari doesn't have that. It's definitely a Chrome thing.
yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I'm rebuilding the web flasher to a more easy to use one. It does have plenty of changes on it, and today I fixed a couple of issues with loading the firmware and stuff like this, and already pushed it. The last thing I'll need to implement is this sort of you can open up a web terminal and it will automatically connect and log all the serial that's going on with the Bitaxe, and then you can download it and send it over to the devs on OSMU to make sure to check it out what's going on there. So that's the last thing I need to implement it with it. But the great thing is I switched from the ESP tool, which is a script embedded thingy that you can use on your HTML side, to the ESP tool-JS, which is a framework built around JavaScript, obviously, as the name suggests. But it works better. And previously, you were able to use Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and I believe one other Chromium knockoff. But with the JS implementation, now you can use every single Chromium based browser, which is really great, I believe. So now we open up the doors for more people, and it also looks a little bit better. So if you want to check out the current beta state of it, make sure to do that if you want to. It is still work in progress. It works. You can find this under bitaxeorg.github.io/bitaxe-web-flasher. So same URL. Instead of one clue in the beginning, you put in bitaxe.org, because this is our new repo where we will push all the stuff to. Yeah, but as I said, the last thing that I need to implement is the web serial logging and an option for downloading stuff. And I really need to get a little bit more input. Do you want me to put in like different versions, maybe like the last 3 versions that we have released of firmwares, or should we stick to the latest one? I'm really not, I don't know if we should update that or put it in there or not. Because I believe like the latest one that we always release is most likely the best one that we do have. It's sort of this Apple theme, you know? We basically push the same, but well, look at us. It is completely new and redesigned. No, I'm just joking, but I mean,
I think having the latest in there is certainly the what is it, the MVP, right? That's what we want to have first. You know,
I
if we want to have previous versions, we could deal with that later, but
I'm just asking that because there was one single dude who was asking me, "Hey, can you put in the last 3 versions of it?" And I was like,
that probably was Midwest Chris. That's what he just said right now. Should always make the previous ones available. I mean, to be clear, the previous versions of the firmware are always available on GitHub. You can download those. You know, I realize you already got a lot of tasks. Maybe what we could have is a way for people to load an arbitrary file into the web flasher. So like we have preloaded, we have the latest and greatest. And then if you want to start playing around with previous versions, you could like, you know, download them and load them off your machine back into the web flasher. I don't know. Anyways, we got to get the latest versions working first.
yeah, no. I
This
mean,
is a great tool. Like a lot of people, I think, make use of this. It is definitely a lifesaver. I know a lot of the sellers refer to their customers to this when they're having problems. So this is
it's
going to be an
also
excellent
also
tool.
really a bummer. Like I I can't even count how many emails or requests I do get from, hey, I updated my device, but I flashed the wrong firmware and now it says something completely wrong in my UI. How can I get back? I was updating it multiple times. And then, like, I'm not shit talking here, guys, but people currently, and this is also referring to an issue that you haven't opened, but that you want to open, or you already have opened this, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry. Is like people don't get it that just flashing the esp-miner.binary and the www.binary will not change your configuration on your device. You need to flash a factory or a recovery file in order to achieve that, because think about it like having a plate full of cheese with three different sections. One section is for your UI, the other section is for the background thingy, the back end, and then there's a last section with the most delicious stuff, the best cheese ever, which is your configuration file, which completely sits at a different location. The only thing that we need to update if we have a new release are these two first sections, like the middle cheese and the low end cheese, like UI and the back end. We need to update that. But the configuration file, we actually never need to touch this unless there's anything to change. And the only time we actually did that was with the implementation of the overheat mode, where we were quickly finding out that loading this without sufficient enough, or without actually figuring out what will happen if the config has not changed, will cause bugs. So we implemented a feature that if there is no entry in the configuration file for a specific mode, like it's overheat enabled or not, it needs to write it into it. So it is kind of insane how difficult this is for people. And the most insane part about this is like all us devs here, we are tech guys and we're trying to make this work for the most average pleb. And I'm not down talking you guys. We love you all because you are here and you're supporting us, which is just amazing. But it's really hard for us to sometimes think about issues that we never could imagine because we know or we take this for granted, like, all right, it's common sense. We need to update both files. No, some people don't think that way. And you, Scott, you actually made this issue, I believe, a couple weeks or maybe even like 2 months ago, that we need to move over to having only one single file to update a Bitaxe instead of having two files.
Yeah, I really want to do that. I think, people, semi-technical people, and maybe even, beginner people, we're familiar with the idea of upgrading the software, like a software update, or maybe even a firmware update. Like IoT devices do this all the time. It's like you turn on your Peloton, it's like, oh, the firmware needs to be updated. Do you want to do it? But having two files that you need to do, I think that like exponentially increases the potential for failure because, well, there's two different files that could fail. You could fail one and not notice it, and then try the second. Anyways, it's very easy to get into a state where you haven't updated both of the firmware images. So I really do think we need to combine them into one image. That's what people are familiar with. It lowers the chance of failure because, if just that one file, if it fails, well, you need to do it again. And I think we can do this. It's a little bit tricky because of all those, you mentioned all the different areas on the cheese plate. Those are called partitions. We have several different partitions with different areas that need code, and some of them you don't want to update. And so we have a little bit more complicated process of we need to like write some areas of memory and not other areas. Totally doable. I think we can put this together. That's why I made the issue. I've been trying to recruit folks to work on this. We've got some seriously talented people here helping out. Obviously, everyone's doing a lot already and committing a ton. But yeah, I would really like to get that done at some point. There's a little bit of like sort of embedded firmware R&D that needs to happen to make it work. The two files that we have right now is the easiest and quickest way to do it. And I think that's, when in the very beginning, that's that's how we got going. Ben did it, and he whipped it out, and it works great. And it was a great way to get going. But I think, in the future, move to a simpler method, less chance for failure.
I mean, an interesting thing is like we do have the Bitaxe recovery page, which is just awesome. If you upload the
Yes, made by
www.
in the audience. TDB3 made that.
Yeah.
I noticed he's in the audience there. A legend.
This is really amazing. Like, and I really love this feature. But moving over to a single file, this feature will be lost.
No, we can still have it, right? You could imagine if that one firmware image fails, then you could boot into that sort of bare bones recovery page
Oh, sure.
and get a chance to do it again.
All right.
I think.
Sure.
I
We
think.
do have multiple partitions on the ESP, so that shouldn't be an issue because it's already utilizing the second partition, right? For the recovery page, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, maybe that might be a little bit difficult. Anyways, I think it would be amazing to have that recovery mode. We do have a bootloader that we know is not getting bricked, so maybe there's some way to work around this.
I got it bricked once.
Really?
Yeah.
I have never done it. I've been impressed. Like I've used other microcontrollers before, and you're always like, the bootloader's fucked up. But I mean, knock on wood, so far, the ESP32 bootloader has been rock solid for me.
I believe this is like over half a year ago, something like that. I don't know why, but I was just like curious about a couple of things, and I was just fuck around and finding out probably.
Nice.
I was loading the ESP with like everything, like API requests, and trying to update simultaneously. Like I was having two tabs open. On the one end, I was uploading the ESP-minor binary, and on the other tab, I was updating the www.binary, and then I would hammering it with API requests. And I don't know how, but I got the bootloader to crash. I never got it. I never got it in the same state again. I was able
Was
to.
your ESP32 just like bricked?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's I mean, I guess you were trying to do it, so you got it.
Yeah. In the end, I needed to replace the ESP on board, and after that, it works again. But yeah, I'm not even sure if you would brick your device these days, how you could recover it. I mean, there is this option with this JTAG connector, maybe, but still, then it's tough.
Yeah, I think JTAG you would probably do it. You wouldn't be able to do it over USB.
No.
Well, actually, it's USB JTAG. I don't really know. I'm sure there's a way to fix it. It's probably annoying. It's definitely good that this does not happen very often.
But looking at the time, we're already sitting at 1 hour and 17 minutes. So, do we have any other questions before we close up this town hall today? The session number 22. Amazing. Someone's
Shout
running.
out to TDB3 again. He's going to start working on some firmware modularization, some architecture issues on the firmware, which I think would be pretty cool. Shout out to Leroy Jenkins working on maybe this is top secret. I don't know. He's writing some very cool stuff. Pay attention to this guy. Shout out to ComX10, who's one of the solo Satoshis, doing good stuff, selling stuff. I think we got Midwest Chris and I believe Sean at IX Tech are both manufacturing, getting ramped up to manufacture Bitaxes. I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, but there was that all like whited out Bitaxe. The thing looked so glorious and it had like this laser cut metal plaque behind it with the first page of the white paper, the Bitcoin white paper on it. So cool. I think that was IX Tech that did that. That's fantastic. We got Developer Algos here, one of the OG OSMU members, is also manufacturing Bitaxes. Crypto Ice, also an OG.
Wait. Developer Algor, are you still manufacturing Bitaxes? Like,
Yeah, man. He's been making his own pick and place machine. The thing is a beast.
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if he wants to comment on that or not, but yeah, it's cool to see all these people just like coming at it from their own angle, digging in, and getting involved.
This is
Is Phil the Phil that's been making crazy Bitaxe like multi-chip miners? Or is that a different Phil?
I believe. Well, we do have this
Nope,
Bitaxe.
that's a different Phil. That's Phil 31.
All
Phil
right.
31 has got the eco miner that
Yeah, I
is
was about
like
to say that.
got like roughly 1,000 chips in it or something crazy like that. I'm just joking.
No, but
Different Phil.
it's a really great approach, like having multiple hash boards and then like a control unit. It's basically the Bitmain approach, but in an open source manner, which is great.
Yes. Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, let's see.
We got Frank Pliskin, which is obviously the hero of Escape from New York and Escape from LA. Two fantastic like 80s movies.
All right, I don't know them.
It's like they're old movies. You should go check them out. They're like sort of like post-apocalyptic
Huh.
movies with oh man, who is it? It's like is it Burt Reynolds? One of these old school action actors.
Call me Snake. Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. That's who it is. Kurt Russell. Snake Plissken. He's this like badass dude who has to like fight his way out of post-apocalyptic. Uh, I think the first one's in New York and then in LA.
That's
This,
interesting.
this podcast is already going pretty long.
Alrighty, I do have one last sip in my glass of wine.
All right. Anyone else? What are you all working on? Open PMP for the win. Midwest Chris, is that what you're using? That's cool.
Alrighty. I think with that we do have like plenty of insights in today's session and in today's news. Obviously, as always, guys, let's have a chat in the general voice channel after the town hall. I thank everybody for being here in the audience. I thank everybody for just tuning in. I thank everybody who's listening to this later on. Make sure to check it out. Really, do yourselves a favor, and even if you don't understand code or anything, just appreciate it and print it out and hang it on your walls. It is there for you to learn and for us to make cool stuff because we are nerds. I love being here and I love having the opportunity to do so. Thank you, Scott, for being here again with me in the town hall and entertaining the people.
My
So
pleasure. Thank you for setting this up and continuing this running for 22 episodes so far.
this is just amazing. Yeah. All right. With that, I think there's nothing else to say. But thanks and see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Bye.